The biggest battle we will ever have to face is the battle between you and you. It's the battle of taking your mind to that limit and then breaking through. On the Mindful Experiment podcast, we will share concepts, universal laws, and interviewing individuals who have done just that, who have gone through the dark times and through those moments allowed their light to shine bright. I'm your host, Dr. Vic Manzo, and I want to thank you for listening to the podcast and taking this journey with me as we discover different avenues to break through those limits, expand your reality, and evolve into the person you desire to be. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hey everyone, and welcome. This is Dr. Vic, and you are listening to the Mindful Experiment. This wonderful and amazing guest that we had on the episode today is just an amazing individual. You'll hear her passion come off her from her story and what she shares of what she went through, the success that she reached, but lacked the fulfillment that she desired, and how she made an extremely bold decision to make a vast change in her life, to seek for inner fulfillment and inspiration, that where now she is just a living proof of this. And you'll hear this from her, just her talking and her passion behind everything. Our guest today was Lucia Giovannini. She's a world-renowned sensation, a former international Italian supermodel turned transformational speaker, and she's the author of 13 books. In her 20 years of inspiring work through conferences and workshops globally, she's been inspired by growing up throughout different parts of Italy and Africa and holds a doctorate in psychology and counseling and a bachelor in psycho-anthropology. She's a master firewalking trainer, an NLP and Neuro Semantics trainer, a recognized international life coach. She's the founder at BlessYou International and co-director at LUCE, which is a free University of Evlutionary Growth, and the co-founder and master trainer of Breathwork method, Life Breath. Her work crafts a synergy between traditional psychological techniques, motivational practices, and ancient Eastern rituals that turn her seminars into profound experiences for the audiences in Asia and Europe alike. Lucia has been defined as the Italian Louise Hayes and Oprah by the media, transforming audiences through her teachings, workshops, retreats, meditations, and books globally throughout self-confidence, limiting beliefs, and overcoming fears to live a whole new life. She came out with a new book, internationally acclaimed, called A Whole New Life, which has been translated in more than 8 languages globally, and it debuted in the United States in March 2019. This is a wonderful interview. I highly recommend getting a pen and paper out. She shares a wonderful story, talks about how you can really start to create a whole new life for yourself and how to really create a massive transformation to find more fulfillment and to find more inspiration within your life on a daily basis. So without no further ado, this is Lucia Giovannini. Lucia, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here.
I was excited to have you on, a paisana here, and and just all the work that you're doing, all the stuff that you're up to. I just love your energy and what you bring to the table. So kudos to what you're doing, and I'm definitely excited to have you on. I know we have a lot of things that we cross over with. That's gonna be really wonderful.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
So I was reading your story. You used to be a supermodel, and you were doing really, really well with that, but you still had this feeling of unfulfillment. I'd love to, if you can just dive deep, and we'll start there with the process.
Yeah, well, I started out working as a model by chance, meaning since I was a child, I've always felt a deep call for creating a better world. And not just for us humans, but also for the other beings that share this planet with us. And I'm talking about animals, trees, Mother Earth. And so when someone would ask me, what are you going to do when you grow up? I would answer, I'll do anything to make the world a better place, and that will be my job. So I was very clear about that. But then I was still at college, and I ended up working as a model. It was good money, and I said to myself, okay, it will just be, for a while. It's good, it's an experience. But then it became a full career. And at the beginning, it was awesome. So I moved to Milan. My hometown is Bologna. And I moved to Milan, and I was living in this beautiful house. I earned a lot of money. I was married to a dashing man who was also a model. We were traveling the world, doing fashion shows, photo shooting. So apparently I was living the perfect life. But the thing is that this lasted very shortly, because after, a while, I started feeling like my life was empty, like myself. I started feeling myself void, there's this big, huge hole within myself, and I start feeling depressed, empty, and like my life had no meaning. And of course, I tried to numb this pain in every way I could. So I started working even more. And by the age of 25, 26, I started 3 companies in the fashion industry. But even that did not help. So I started traveling more, shopping more, partying more, anything. But of course, none of that worked because the pain would surface. So, of course, another thing that it was that I was telling myself that I didn't know what I wanted, I kept on saying to myself, well, how is this happening? I don't know what, but in reality, I was lying to myself, because I knew perfectly well, deep inside myself, I knew that the depression was my soul calling to follow my true mission. But of course, I couldn't admit it even to myself. It was too scary. So for some time, and I mean quite some time, I resisted change, finding every excuse, or good reason why I couldn't change my life. So it's not surprising that my depression got worse, until one day I just decided to leave everything. And I did it, all together. I left my marriage. I left my beautiful house. I went back to my hometown. And so my beautiful house, I left it to my ex-husband. I left my 3 companies without taking any money or shares. And on top of that, all my friends, that was not such a smart decision. But, I was young, and I was full of, sense of guilt. And so I left everything to my partners, business partners, because, in a way I felt like I had let them down. So I was paying with my, my sense of guilt, of being guilt for that. And on top of that, all my friends abandoned me too, because they thought I had gone crazy. So everyone told me, go to see a psychiatrist. There's something wrong with you. So, and even when people ask me, but what are you going to do? My reply was, okay, I'm going to be an animal activist and a spiritual coach. And people were really puzzled. Good friends, I know that they were worried for me. So I know that their reaction, was because they were really worried for me. Because at that time in Italy, and I'm talking about more than 25 years ago, that time in Italy, coaching was non-existent. The only coaching that was little known, was the sports, coaching. Like if you were a sports coach, then it was okay. So when I used to say I want to be a spiritual coach, people would look at me with a strange face and say, are you going to work in a gym? Because they didn't have a the animal activist part, they didn't dare to comment, because you don't earn a living, doing that. So they didn't. So it was not easy. And at the beginning, my attempts to run workshops and, to have like private clients for coaching sessions were not doing very well. So I was struggling to get participants and clients. So my savings were dwindling down very fast. So it was not, that you follow your heart and immediately you go to the other side, then you're fully successful. that would have been much easier. But I went to the other side. I left everything, and I was not successful at all for, almost a year. So not easy. Yeah.
That takes a lot of inner strength. I mean, I know in the movies, or they say follow your heart and everything sets in place, or you just do this and it'll all just happen. But you went through that. In my own journey, I went through the same thing, where you follow your heart and it's not what it doesn't go as well you expected.
Exactly. So it was at a certain moment, I must honestly say, I started, questioning myself. Had I really gone crazy? Did I really throw away everything good in my life? And I also asked myself, should I just give up? But then I realized, that in a way, I didn't want to waste my life doing something that was not aligned to who I was. So, and I also realized I was focusing on the wrong questions, because the question I was asking myself, of course, and it was human, but the question I was asking myself was, what am I losing? What am I missing? What's the price that I'm paying? I'm paying a huge price to follow my heart. But in reality, the question which I should have been focused on was, what would have been the price if I had stayed in that situation? If I had stayed in that situation that did not represent me, if I had continued in the fashion world, what would have been the price that I would have paid? My whole life, staying my whole life in a situation that was not aligned to who I was. So then I realized, okay, I don't want to be unhappy for the rest of my life, and then, okay, I'll go on here. And that's where I became more resilient. And I also realized that, in a way, our dreams, because for me it was really a dream, to be able to help people, to help make a change, a positive change in the world. And so I realized that our dreams are a gift from God, God's spirit, however we want to call this energy. And realizing our dreams is our way of returning the favor to God. So that was when it dawned on me that I had made the right decision.
I love that. I love how you say the dream is, a gift from God, and achieving that dream, making it a reality, really is giving back to God. I love that. That's awesome. And in that process, I love how you shifted the question, right? People say, the quality of the question you ask will determine the quality of the life, right? And so, or the quality of life you'll have is determined by the quality of the questions you ask. And just from that simple change, it shifted your perspective, and you just went that path then.
Yeah. That was the turning point for me. Because, I had this big dream. I felt it in my heart. I felt this call, but it was not working. So, of course, I was struggling physically, financially, but also emotionally and spiritually, because I was starting to doubt God, has God abandoned me too? That was, my kind of question. How? Why am I paying this huge price of, losing my friends, losing my house, losing my money? But then, just shifting that kind of question was a game changer.
I love it. And for the listeners out there, you've heard me say this a lot. When you change yourself, all of a sudden everything around you changes, and that includes friends and family and so forth, and relationships. I know I've gone through the same thing, and it's one of those things. So I give you commend for making that choice, and especially all the doubt, right? It's like you're doing the work, you're expecting to be at a certain level, and then all of a sudden you're just like, I feel like it's not working, like it's not happening. And then those questions come in, and that fear or worry, anxiety maybe starts to steep in and affect us in some shape, way, or form.
Yeah, that's why I think it's so important, to share. I love to share my story, and hearing that you went through similar situation. and sharing this is so important, because in a way, I think there's a conditioning belief or a trap in the personal development field, where you think, okay, I follow my heart, and as you said, and everything, if it's the right path, everything will align naturally. Everything will manifest naturally. Like, you just think about your dream, and then it just happens. And in my experience, and in the experience of, hundreds of other people that I've guided through this process, thousands of people actually, it doesn't necessarily work that way. Sometimes we are sort of lucky and it's easier, but most of the times it's not. So the bigger you dream, the more resistance you encounter, in a way. And you need to be ready to face that resistance. You need to be resilient enough to keep on walking down the path until, and at the same time continue working on yourself. Because with me, actually, it was only when I made that internal shift that then things started to shift also externally. It was that internal shift that then, after a while, people started calling me, and I started to get more participants to my workshops, more people to my private sessions, and then they talk to friends, and by words of mouth, it became better and better, slowly, but steadily. But the first thing I needed to do was that internal shift.
And what gave you that resiliency? What kept you moving forth no matter what came your way, those challenges and so forth?
Yeah, I think it was, on one side, honestly, it was because there was no way back. I had already, signed all the papers to actually let go of my 3 companies, and I gifted, I gave all the shares for no money to my business partners. So I of course, I could have started again as a model. That was a possible choice. But in terms of, all the businesses that I had created, I had already given them away. So there was no turning back. And in this sense, I think that sometimes burning the bridges behind us, in a way, I don't know if you have that same expression in English, but, when you can't go back, then the only direction is forward. And so in my experience, this helped, because, I could have gone back to work as a model, but it wasn't, the full picture. It was just a little part. So that, and the other part was, I think I still had, deep inside myself, this trust in the universe, in God, in spirit. And so again, as I said, I think that if I had that dream within my heart, it meant something. It was not there by chance. And so I had at least to try everything, to fulfill that dream.
I love that. And no, exactly. I always tell this to a lot of people. I do it on my podcast, and people I work with, all about make a decision and just go forth and cut out all the other options. And, burning the bridges, burning the boats, and taking over the island, all these different phrases. But it's really, I commend you for that. And with that, and have you ever heard the phrase too, like, if you can imagine it, then you can create it. If you ever heard that before?
Yeah, of course. I totally agree. It's another way to say it, like if I think that if something it's in our heart, and in our mind, so and it's like, if something makes our heart beat faster, our eyes grow brighter, then we need to go forward and at least try with everything we have, with all our strength, with all our efforts, at least try to pursue it, to manifest it.
No, I totally agree. And it's would you say it's like, it's what you're kind of expressing is, it's what keeps you, what makes you feel alive.
Yes. Otherwise, Yeah, you live in your comfort zone, but then you're not really living. Actually, and that's something I also write in my book, A Whole New Life. I think we should actually name comfort zone the discomfort zone because it's a prison in reality. You can't grow if you stay there.
So true. Yeah. And how many people in the world today, they want to stay in the comfort as much as possible?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's easier actually. And actually it's also, our society that in a way scares us enough so that we don't, move out of our comfort zone. So
So true. So true. So how, I know you had your book, A Whole New Life. How could, let's say there's someone who's hearing your story, and they're doing something that they just don't feel, they feel unfulfilled, and they want to make that shift, and they just feel deep in that this is not what they're designed to do, and they see something else that they want. What is the beginning process, or and I know I recommend people to read the book to get the whole answer to this, but how do you start a whole new life?
yeah, well, the first step is awareness, of course, because if you're not aware of where you are and where do you want to go, then it's difficult to create a positive change, an evolutionary change. So in A Whole New Life, I talk about the axes of change, which are the several phases that you need to go through in order to create, a transformation in your life, a positive transformation in your life. And the first of these phases or axes of change is awareness. So the first step would be, to take some time and really go deep inside and ask yourself, okay, what do I really, really want? If I, and again, lots of people tell me, oh, I don't know what I want. And that's my problem. But in reality, in my experience, what I found is that lots of people actually lie to themselves. Like I was lying to myself when I was saying, I don't know what I want. In reality, it was not true. It's just that we are so scared, because in order to go where we want to go, we need to make huge changes in our life. Sometimes it costs us, a relationship or a job or money. And so we don't, want to, in a sense, we want to go there, but on the other side, we are afraid, to make that step. So we say, oh, I don't know what I want. So, of course, we need to be honest with ourselves. And so the question could become, if you were not afraid, what would you want? If you had all the time and money and possibilities of the world, what would you want to? What would you want to do? But even more importantly, who would you want to be as a person? Which difference would you like to make in the world? How would you like your life to be spent? And so this kind of questions. And so another question could be, when you were a child, what did you like doing? Because most of the times, and many studies also confirm this, most of the times, the things that we were really passionate about as children are still the things that we are passionate about in our adulthood. And so it has to do with our soul mission. So, I would advise people to play around with this kind of questions. And so the first step, as I said, is awareness. Once we are aware of where we want to go, then, of course, we need to have enough motivation to get there. Because if we don't have enough motivation, either we won't start the journey, or we will stop halfway through. When we meet the first difficulties, when we encounter the first challenges, then we stop. And so, how do we create this motivation? Is with those questions like, okay, what is the price that I'm paying to stay in my comfort zone? If I imagine my life, at the end of my life, and I look back, what do I want? To see what kind of life do I want to live? And so those kind of questions, it's like a little bit, to have some reality checks. And so the idea is to really understand that just staying in your comfort zone is not so comfortable, actually. Uh, so that for the motivation part. And then when we are motivated enough, then there's decision part. And so the decision part, as we said before, it's where we decide, which it's a word that comes from Latin, and it means to cut. So we cut the old the old situation, or we cut the old behavior, and we launch into the new phase. And that's where we need to go through the creation phase. And creation has inner creation and outer creation. So inner creation is we need to have a look at our conditioning belief and in general belief system, and to create some new supporting belief system. So that's where we work with I'm not good enough, I don't have time, I don't have resources, who I am too, I'm not too clever enough, etc., etc. And we really change those beliefs into supporting belief. And then there's the external creation. The external creation has to do with, an action plan and doing new actions, like finding resources, people who can help us or who can mentor us, maybe a good coach, like external actions and external resources. And I think that the creation axis need really to be, or the creation phase need to be done from both sides. Because if you just work internally, well, it is very powerful, but the risk is that then if you don't do any actions towards your goal, it's not enough. But if you only do the external part and you don't change your belief system, then you won't be able to create, the transformation. So these are the main steps. And then once you start doing your transformation, having your transformation, then you need to solidify the change, the solidification part, but that comes afterward. And of course, another part of the creation axis, of the creation phase, is to start with small steps. Like if you want to write a book, instead of thinking, oh, I'm going to write 300 pages, like focus on one page or even half a page a day, those kind of things. So it is not frightening. It is not too daunting to make a huge change.
I love how simple you just express it. I mean, it's really sound wisdom for all the listeners there. I mean, this is really, really, really solid stuff. And I like at the end how you said too, you have to take action, right? You can have this big dream, but if you don't do any external stuff with that big dream, it just stays a dream.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the problem in my experience. That's the problem of many spiritual, communities, or many spiritual people. They have big dreams, big ideas. They know how to raise their energy. They have a big vision. They are totally connected with their soul, their heart. But then they don't take action. If you don't take action, it stays. All that energy stays there and doesn't get transformed into. Doesn't get grounded.
No, and it's funny you bring that up, because that's what I've always experienced too. My background's in energy medicine, and it's funny how they get it, right? From a spiritual side and the creation of energy, how to manipulate their energy or move their energy and all that, they get it, but they don't do the action part. And sometimes when I have conversations with people about this who are more spiritually aware, I will tell them, like, why do you think you have 7 chakras and the top 3 are more for things outside the physical realm, what you can see with your eyes, and the lower are more for connect more to the physical realm? I'm like, you have to channel that whole thing to, top and bottom, to allow to create in your experience into your reality.
Yeah, definitely. And on the other, it's so interesting because I think I'm sort of a bridge between, of course, my background and my heart is more on the spiritual field. And at the same time, I happen to work quite often also in the corporate world, just, like speeches in conventions and so on and so forth. And so I look at the corporate world, people in companies, and they are very practical oriented, very action oriented. And so they get results, but they get stressed and they get depressed because they don't have that, higher meaning or higher values or higher vision. And so on one side, we have this like corporate people who are very, marketing people, sales people who get results, but and maybe they earn a lot of money, but they are not happy at all because they lack meaning and spirituality and, a bigger vision. And then on the other side, we have these spiritual communities or spiritual people who have higher meaning, higher, visions and values, but they don't take action. And so, like, what if we merge the two worlds, and have higher meaning and put them into action? And that's the idea of, a whole new life with those axes of change.
I was just going to say that's a creation, as you just said, a whole new life, and it really creating a transformation, because I think then that will start to create more fulfillment for individuals, more inspiration. And so forth. Because I know my journey was kind of like that too. Not so corporate, but it was in the mindset of that. But wanting to get to these certain levels and being told that's how it is to be successful in a sense, and then get there, and all of a sudden you're like, "This is it, really? I'm still stressed out, even though I got here." Exactly. And then you do the work to, like, as you did too, where, okay, I'm leaving this, I'm changing this, or I'm going to do whatever to really see how do I really want to see this be, and then live my life that way.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly, you described perfectly what happened to me. I struggled to get there. I worked a lot to get there. And then you get there and you ask, is it this?
No, and it's funny, your experiences, the questions you were asking yourself, I did the exact same thing, where I'm just like, I don't know, or maybe this is not meant for me then, or maybe what's, I'm everything's going so well and I'm not happy. There's something wrong with this picture.
Exactly.
And so I'm kind of curious. I want to shift gears just a little bit. What got you very passionate about being an animal advocate and so forth? Where did that evolve from? Was it as a child, or I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, I think definitely it was since my childhood. I've always been, so fascinated by the other living beings that are sharing this planet with us. And like, I spent part of my childhood in Africa because my father used to live there and work there. And so I don't know if it was because I was exposed to this wildlife, but the idea is that animals don't have a voice. They don't have money to pay for their freedom or for, they can't defend themselves, basically. And so since they give so much to us, I think the least we can do is really become their advocate, becoming their voice, and so, like, to give you an example, since I was very little, I refused to eat meat. And, being Italian, we have this culinary tradition where, you eat meat. And so I struggled with my parents. And it was only when I was like 9 years old that they finally gave up and they left me, and they left me free, basically, with my nutrition, and I could eat whatever I wanted, more or less, but at least I could avoid meat. But why did I do that? Because to me, eating another living being, who, had to suffer and give his life for me, for my food, was inconceivable. So, and I didn't know anything about, all the veganism that, now there are a lot of studies that also show that you have more energy, that, if you eat a plant-based diet, that, you save land and forest, and so it's good for the environment and it's good for your health, etc., etc. But at that time I didn't know anything about all that. It was just purely for my love of animals and respect for them. So yeah, I think it has accompanied me my whole life.
I love that. And is there a specific, is it all animals that you're an advocate for? Is there like a specific one that, like, I don't want to say won your heart more, but like you put more energy towards?
Well, I actually love all animals. Just to give you an idea, when I was a little child, I remember trying to caress a crocodile.
Oh my goodness. Sorry, go ahead.
And because we had a river by our house, and I had gone to the river, and there was a crocodile there, and it was so cute, and he was sleeping. So I went there and I tried to caress him, and there was the gardener, our gardener, and he saw the scene, and I think he had an heart attack because he took me away. It was like, So, yeah, and I mean, recently I saved like 2 bulls, 2 cows from a slaughterhouse. So I'm actually very active in saving any kind of animal. Of course, I mean, I've always been very fond of dogs, and so here in Italy now I have this foundation where we save dogs from Eastern Europe, Spain, Southern Italy, because we have, horrible situations in those places. And so, and then we save them and we find adoptions for them. But in general, I try to save any animal I encounter.
I love that. Yeah, we're my wife and I are big advocates. Just we're big animal advocates, but for dogs specifically, because again, like you said, no one has a voice, right? They don't have a voice. They give us a ton of things, but specifically, we focus a lot on with pit bulls just because of the bad rap they get in America. And then of course, those are the ones that are I think it's 40 to 50,000 per month are put to sleep. Yeah, it's a pretty sad story. Plus with the bad rap, and it's like I always tell people, the ones who are being the criticizers or criticized, I'm like, most of the time they never have owned one or they never been around one. They're the most loving dogs. I've had other dogs in my life, but that one is like, there's just something different about them.
Totally. We just saved a pit bull. A few, like probably 8-9 months ago from Spain. He was, they were going to put him asleep, and we were able to save him like the day before the execution was going to happen, and then we find an adoption for him, and actually we followed him, and he now lives in Rome, in a penthouse, and he has his own bedroom, and he's very spoiled, and he's so cute, and he's the sweetest dog ever. Like, he lives in the center of Rome. His owner goes out with the dog in the center of Rome, full of people, and never had any problem. The sweetest dog ever, with children, playing with the dog in the streets and, caressing him. Because, in the center of Rome, it's full of tourists, full of people. And when this lady walks the dog, of course, then the dogs meet lots of people, and super, super calm dog, very centered. So I totally agree. The bad rap that pit bull have is just, it depends how you treat them, of course. It depends. Like humans, if you treat a human badly, then he gets angry, but it's not, the fault is not the dog.
Totally. No, I totally agree with you. And that's the poor stigma. Like, we foster for dogs too. And it's one of those things where we've had a couple right on death row a couple hours before and be able to save their life. And then you hear their story of how someone abandoned them, but they'll still turn around and love you. That's just, if you give them love, they'll give love 2 times, 3 times more back to you.
Exactly. And actually, again, in my book, there's a chapter about that. There's a chapter about tools for transformation, which is, what can help us to lead a better life? What can help us to create the transformation, the changes we want? And in the tools for transformation, there are things like, proper nutrition, like plant-based diet rather than breathing exercises, rather than meditation, those kind of things, practical things that you can do and in your life, and like gratitude, that help you to have a better mood and a better energy, etc. And one chapter is about like helping animals, or having a pet in your house, for example, because there are tons of studies that say that people who own a pet and spend, or even if you can't own a pet, but at least volunteer in a shelter, you get so much benefit from it, so much in any sense.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. One of the studies showed that for humans, and if you have a dog, because this is what the study was specifically looking at, that when you hug or cuddle or touch a dog and connect with them, I think it's like 30 seconds to 45 seconds minimum, you will start to release oxytocin, which is the feel-good hormone, and they will have the same release. And so you're both helping each other out by just connecting in that way.
Yeah, definitely. And they are actually teaching us pure love, unconditional love.
Yeah, I love how you bring that up too, because I talk to my wife a lot about that, and I'm always like, because the universe is always, and nothing is ever created out of a desire. It's always created out of a need, at least from the universe side. So it's, or God, or however you want to label that. And so I'm always like, why are humans being more around dogs or animals in general? But I see more dogs than anything. And you just said it, to learn what really pure love is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And
so,
and love is the most powerful force that we have. Basically, love heals. Actually, I think that if love is not there, healing becomes impossible. Whereas if love is there, healing is much easier. So, and that's what dogs in general teach us.
Yeah. So for all the listeners out there, if you're looking to change your life and de-stress a little bit, get a dog. I promise it'll change you drastically.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, it will improve because it will force you, to walk more. So it will improve also your body, like blood circulation, etc.
So true. Real quick, I got a couple questions I want to ask before we get to the end here. But you have such a powerful story. You made such bold moves in your life that take a lot of inner strength. From all that you've gone through, what advice would you give yourself 10 years ago, if you could, of what you learned up to this day?
Well, I would tell myself to just trust the universe. I would tell myself not to worry, that I am guided even when I don't feel so. Even when plans are not going like as I planned. So things are not happening in the time that I had planned, or things are not happening the way I planned them, to just trust the process and just keep on walking, and I'll get there.
So I love that. That's really great. And for the listeners, it's really that's a powerful message. I know other people I've interviewed, and even myself, that's one of the things that when I get asked, I'm like, yeah, I wish I'd learned to trust more. Yeah. The whole journey. Yeah. Who would you say is your hero?
That's a good one. I have many. So the first that came to mind is Jane Goodall. I don't know if you ever heard of her. She is known for her studies on chimpanzee and in Africa. And she actually devoted her whole life to these animals, and also to teaching people how to respect these animals, and how to connect with these animals. So yeah, definitely. And she's like in her 80s now and still lecturing around the world.
Oh wow.
So that's another thing that I love so much, because sometimes people say, oh, when I'm getting old, when I retire. And actually I don't want to retire. Now I'm 55, so I still have time. But but I would love, to keep on teaching and giving workshops until the last day of my life. So, and she's still traveling the world, giving lectures at like 82, I think, something like that.
That's awesome. No, I could totally connect with you. I joke around with people. I'm like, I'll never retire. The time I retire is the time I'm not here physically anymore.
Yeah. Why retire? If you do something you love, you don't want to retire from something you love. Maybe, you can just, adjust your schedule to have some, like some downtime from one speech or one workshop to another, and that's okay, or from one trip to another. But why retire if what you do is your passion?
I totally agree. How could people get a hold of your new book? Where could they get it at?
So any bookstore or even online bookstores like Amazon, for example. And if you go to my website, which is my name, www.luciagiovannini.com, which is LuciaGiovannini.com. You can download the first chapter, and also you can get some free, several free bonuses, even if you don't buy the book. Even if you decide not to buy the book, you still get the free bonuses. Like there's a 5 video series called The Axis of Change, which lead you through all the phases of change to create the change you want. And there in my website, you can also buy the book.
Awesome. And can people get a hold of you? How can they connect with you via social media?
I have a Facebook group called A Whole New Life, so the same name as the book, where I post videos and advices and, exercises and meditations. And then there is my Facebook page, Lucia Giovannini, and also on Instagram.
Awesome. Lucia, this was a pleasure, a lot of synchronicity, of your story, my story, and just the general information you shared. It was really a pleasure to get to know you a little better and to hear your story and all the beautiful things that you're doing.
Thank you, Vic. Actually, it was such a pleasure for me.
Well, I want to appreciate it. Keep that light firing bright, and I continue to see looking forward to seeing you continue moving forward with everything that you do. Thank you for listening to the podcast. For past shows, please visit www.empoweryourreality.com. I hope this show inspired you and added to your life to help you on the journey to rediscover who you really are. To connect with us on Facebook, please visit www.facebook.com/Dr. Vic Manzo. Check us out on Twitter. The handle is Dr. Vic21. Follow us on Instagram, www.instagram.com/Dr. Vic Manzo. If you were inspired by the podcast, pay it forward by sharing it with someone who you know can benefit from it. Thank you again for listening to the Mindful Experiment podcast, sharing paths to help you rediscover your infinite potential.